Hey all, welcome back. Today we're going to create something very cool, something which has been traditionally very difficult to make in games, but we're going to have a crack at it today using some slightly old school effects. And heads up, we're not going to be making a particle emitter. I've got something else in mind for particles for a future video. But for now, today, we're going to try and make some fire. And all we're going to need to get started is these two texture files. For one, head over to the link, you will find it in the description, to a free browser-based online tool where you can generate sprite sheets just like this one for all kinds of different effects. I've just used the flame one and made myself a little sprite sheet here. Might have to tinker a bit to get one that loops nicely. Just play around with the timing and that kind of thing. And the other file we'll need is a gradient here, just a radial gradient. I just produced it in Photoshop really quickly. Starts at yellow, transitions to red, and then some black at the top, which we'll use to help us with opacity. And that's it. So let's get started. So just right click, create a new material. We'll call it fire matte, and we'll open it up. Alright, first thing off the bat is we'll set our material down here in the blend mode to translucent, and we'll also drag in our two texture files. Just like that. Really easy so far. And the way that we're going to make the our fire here actually animate in the material is we're going to use an Unreal Engine flipbook. So just right click on your graph here, type in flipbook. You'll see it here under MISC. If you're not seeing these things, just enable engine contents in the view options window, and you'll get this node here. So we're not going to plug in anything into this texture 2D because that'll sort of cut away a lot of the functionality that we're going to be needing going forward. Just plug in the UVs of the flipbook into our sprites here, and then drag them over to base color. And straight away we'll see a little bit of animation, but it's obviously not quite what we want. So let's adjust some things. For example, the time. Just grab the time node and a multiply node and make yourself a scalar. Call it time multi. And we'll set this to 1. Plug it into our multiply and plug that into the animation phase input of the flipbook. That'll get us going. Next, we want to change the number of rows and columns. So just make yourself a constant. We'll just use a constant. And set the number of rows and columns to the number of rows and columns of your flipbook. In this case, it's 4. So we need 4 rows, 4 columns, total of 16 sprites. And when it compiles, we'll see we've got some fire. So we're already ahead. We're already getting there. Now, let's so we'll deal with our colors first, which is pretty easy because all we're going to need to do is just make a multiplier and a scalar. Call it emissive multi, and we'll hook this up with our main output of our texture and this multiply node with our scalar. Set this to say 10, and we'll put this into emissive. Pretty simple. So that gets us our color happening, but now we have to sort out the opacity so that we actually get the color to be applied to our fire, and we cut out all of this extra screen space. So from our output node here, we'll send our gradient into a desaturation, and our desaturation into a multiply, and we'll get the main colors of our sprites. Hook these up into multiply, and then we'll go into another multiply and use a scalar to control just how opaque our fire is going to be. We'll make another scalar called flame opacity. We'll set it to 1 by default. And we'll plug that into this multiply, and then this multiply into opacity. Look at that. We've already got some fire going on. Looking pretty good so far. Now, what's next? We'll try and... yeah, we can affect our texture here a little bit more with some world position offset, similar to how we would do with foliage. So just right click on your graph. We'll get the simple grass wind node, and we'll make some scalars here to sort ourselves out. So we'll get one intensity. We'll default it to 1. Duplicate it. And we'll need one for speed. And another one for weight. Just rename these guys. And we'll need another one for scale. Control how much it's affected. And we can plug these straight in as we go. So speed, weight, just like that. And for these four, we'll grab them all and we'll set them into a group called wind. Nice, fairly easy so far. Oh, and we'll need a constant here. We'll just make a constant, set it to 1, and we'll plug this into our additional world position offset, because we need to have something plugged into all 4 of these values in order to use this node. So now that we got that, and that's all set up, ready to be configured in our instance, we'll get a multiply, and we'll plug in our scale here. And for this, instead of using a texture with a gradient on it, we can just right-click our graph and find the linear gradient under gradient. And we can see how this works just by, so if we plug this into our multiply, right-click the multiply and hit preview, we can see what we get when we use this this linear gradient node. And you see if we use one or the other, we get a vertical or a horizontal, and then from our V, that is our vertical, we need a 1 minus to invert these values so we have black at the bottom and white at the top. This will make sure that we're not getting that that wavy wind effect at the bottom of the texture. We're only going to get it at the top. So we can stop previewing this multiply, and we'll get ourselves another multiply. So we'll plug in our simple grass wind to this multiply, and then plug that into world position offset. And now, well, if we cut out the opacity, let's in fact, let's just preview that node. Oof, that's a bit weird. We'll cut our opacity, and we should be able to see, yeah, we can see how the grass wind is affecting our preview mesh here, which I've just got set to the plane. So this will sort of add to the fire effect, and we have all of these values here that we can configure when we instance the material. So we'll hook up that opacity again, and we're about done with our fire material. So hit save. Wait for that to save. And now we can go back into our editor, and let's, so if we get a plane, no, we don't want the media plane. Let's go to starter content, shapes, and in here we have a shape plane. That's the one that we want. So we'll just rotate this up somewhere around 90 degrees, and then we can put our material on it. So we'll go back to our materials. Where are we? And we'll drop that on there. It's sideways, so we'll rotate this back up. And you can see we have some fire working out. So we'll make an instance of our flame material, of our fire material. We'll drag that onto the plane. Wait for that to come up. Piling shaders. All right, now we'll open up our instance, and we'll play around with some of these values here. So let's turn on all of our scalars. We'll set our emissive, let's say 40, and flame opacity, we'll set that to 4. Oh, our instance isn't on our material. What have I done here? Oh my god, look at that. So there it is. So I'll just reset that one back to normal. Wow. Okay, so make sure that you have the right thing selected, which is our shape plane. And then we'll get our instance and we'll just drop it straight over here so that we know what's going on. There we go. Now we can see our values as they're being affected on the right mesh. So let's go back to our values over here. As for wind, let's set our scale to 2. Speed, lower the speed a bit, and the weight 0.2. So we just have a little bit of distortion there, a little bit of mesh distortion going on. And anyway, that will set up our instance more or less right. And we have our fire here. In fact, we can just select this. We'll have to select it in the world outliner. Transparency plays havoc with selection, and we'll delete that. So now we're going to make our fire actor. So right click in your folder here, make a new blueprint class, call it an actor. This will be our fire BP, and open it up. Okay, so let's add a component. We're going to need a static mesh. The mesh, we can select it over here, shape plane. And our material is going to be the fire instance that we made. Fire mat instance. And I'll just turn on snapping for the rotation so that we can set it the right way up. And we have our fire there, cranking away in our blueprint. Now let's go to add component again. Let's find a point light, because we want our fire to actually cast light. And we'll lower that down. We're pretty central. Change our color to an orangey red. Just like that. Hit compile and save. And now drag your blueprint into the world. Now when we hit play, you'll see that we've got fire, and the fire is actually shining light on our mannequin here. I might just move it a little further away so that you see it in the dark. Just like that. We're not done yet. Let's make some extra cool stuff so that it's always going to face the player, and the light's going to have a bit of a flicker to it. Just for some added effect. It's a kind of an old school method for making fire, but it's very lightweight on the engine, and looks really quite cool when it's finished. So the first thing we need to do is find the angle of the blueprint and have it always face the player. So we're in the event graph here. Let's make ourselves a new function. This one's called getAngle, and it'll be to set the actor's rotation. The actor will be the blueprint that we're working in, just the self. And we need to find the player camera. Get player camera manager, and then from this, get camera location. And we'll also need to get this actor's location. Get actor location. We're going to subtract these two vectors from one another. Vector minus vector, and then multiply it by a value, because we don't need it to rotate on every axis, just the axis where the vertical axis. What am I trying to say? That's the z-axis. So we're going to multiply by 1 for each other axis, and by 0 for the z-axis. So let's find a vector, multiply by a vector, set x and y both to 1, not 10. And leave z as 0. We'll normalize the vector to keep the magnitude and direction at 1. We don't want to get like crazy huge sort of values. It'll mess with how the effect is going to be accomplished. And then we'll need a rotator. So get rotation. Nope, not get. Just rotation from x vector. And plug that into rotation. Hit compile and save. Now in the editor, while we're not playing, it's not going to have any effect. In fact, it's not going to have any effect at all, because this is in a function. So if we go to the event graph, we'll get out our begin play node, and we'll need to set timer by function name. The function name will be the same name as the function that we just made, get angle. We need to set it to loop and set the time to, let's say, 0.1. This is a lot more light on than using the event tick, where it has to make the calculation sort of live for every single frame that the game renders. This is just a bit easier. I have to execute it once, and it'll just keep going as long as it's in the game. So we hit play now, and we'll see that it's facing us side on. So we can fix that just by getting our shape plane. And we'll just rotate it sideways like this. We compile and play. And there we have it. Now it's always going to face the camera, no matter which way we're looking. Oh, we could probably get rid of the collision on the fire, so that it's not ripping out the camera like that, which is easy enough. Just go to details, search for collision, and set it to no collision. Done. Now we can get right up close to it. Stand in the fire if you like, and it's always going to face the camera. Now the last thing we'll do is make this light flicker. It gives a more sort of realistic light that you would see produced from fire. So we'll come back here to our event graph off our begin play node, And we'll make ourselves a timeline. Add timeline. We'll just call it light. Nearly. Light, flicker. Plugged it into play. And we'll open up our timeline here. We need to make a new float track. This will just be called flicker. Length will be 1 second long. And we'll see if we can size that up just so that we can see everything quite nice. And then we have to add some keys. So to start, we'll just add one at 0 with a value of, say, 1. And we'll make another one there, another one there, another one there, there. Another one there, and another one there. Now we'll crank these guys up so that we get some more sort of radical values. There's only one below, it's below 0, so we'll pull that one up too. These don't have to be precise. In fact, like so, the more random that they are, the more sort of like fire that they're going to look. And what's going on here? Why is nothing? Might pull this one up too. There we go. So that's our timeline for our fire. We don't need to hit save or anything. We'll go back to our event graph. It gets us our light flicker. See this floats appeared. This is the float track of our timeline, and we're going to use this to set the intensity of our point light, which means we will need a variable. Call it light intensity, and we can make that public. And we also need to make it a float, and we'll just compile. Set the default to something high because we'll multiply this by those values that we set. Drag that in, get, make ourselves a float, multiply by float. Plug that in there, and then from our point light variable, set intensity. And we'll plug that into the update and plug in our new intensity. Let's actually go back to our timeline here because we forgot to set autoplay and loop on. And that should do it. That will set us all right up nice. So compile, save, go back into our level. Nothing will happen here because it's all in the begin play. So once we get up close, nothing's happening. We'll have to set the value quite a bit higher. Let's have a look here. In fact, I think I know what's going on. Get our point light. We need to set the intensity to lumens. Compile. Alright, that's super bright. But when we hit play, we've got ourselves some nice glowy firelight that that really finishes off the effect. So we'll probably turn down our intensity a bit, maybe 125. Compile and save again. Yeah, that's better. So if you would like, to use this effect sort of more than once in your level, you will have to change your timelines. Maybe introduce some random elements there. Otherwise, they'll all have this exact same flicker, and it won't look so good. But if you want something like if you have a cave to explore and you want a flame for the top of the torch that the player holds, this is absolutely ideal. And we won't need to. We won't need to do anything else. We've got the light set to movable. So it will be dynamic. It'll cast dynamic shadows, which is a bit better. It'll be a little harder on the engine or on the computer running the game, but it gets us that those nice dynamic shadows just like that. So that's the end of the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you'd like to see how to do this with particles, I've got some things in the works for particle emitters that I'll be doing in the future. But I thought this would just be a great sort of example of a kind of low cost sort of method to produce pretty convincing fire. It doesn't look terrible, and it's pretty light on the engine. So again, hope you guys liked it. I'll see you in the next video.